Conservation. And this is our webinar number 3. The first 2 webinars, hopefully you guys have all done all the little pieces of homework to kind of piece together your landscaping. Creating a base map is what we talked about in the first webinar, and how to really get some of these design concepts down. And so hopefully everybody has created their base map. And then in webinar 2, we went really in depth into the different species of native plants and how tall they grow, and to really just give you an idea of the conditions that they require. And so hopefully you're kind of piecing together your plant list and designing out some of your landscaping. And this is webinar 3. We are going to be talking about, okay, what do we do now that we have some plants? How do we plant them and care for them? And what's their maintenance? And what are some of the common pests and troubles that we see here in the Northwest? So we are just going to dig right into it. Let's see, we are at, we're at 101. So I think we can get started. So now that you have decided what kind of plants you want, what species you want for your landscape, there's different options. You can get plants that are ball and burlap, like the one on the right. You can get potted plants, or you can get bare root plants. Or you could be adventurous and grow your own plants from seed. So there's lots of different options. You know, plants also come in plugs, which are little mini pots. And also you can create more plants by taking cuttings of plants. And so you have now by this point figured out.
Excuse me, Kim.
Oh, yes. Yes.
This is Susan Harris. I'm usually on Dave Large's his computer with him, but he's not here today.
Right.
And I have been given a digital message that says I'm not I don't know, visible, or I'm something about the video stopped by the host. I don't know who the host is, maybe you?
Okay, so maybe we turned off people's videos.
Okay, not a problem then.
I'm not sure.
Don't want to miss anything. Thank you. Sorry to bother you.
Right, but you can see the presentation, correct?
I can.
Okay, good. Maybe at the end we can enable people's videos. We just want to.
I'm eating lunch. I don't want you to watch.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, that's fair then. Yeah, I think, we do have that control whether people can turn on their videos or not, and we turned it off right now. So.
On this one, yeah. And then that big one over there, we got it down. My saw is not working like that dad's saw.
So I hear somebody's. I think Julia Smith, I think you have your microphone on. We're hearing some background noise from you. Julia, good to see you again. Do you think you can mute your microphone? Anyway, all right, I will continue on. Thanks, Julia. So I'll continue on here. This is a picture here of some of the different ways to plant, but there's only one way on this picture that's the right way. So these are some common mistakes that you get when planting plants. You get one of the most common ones is the top left one here. It's called J-rooting, and the roots get turned up, or they get kinked and planted in the hole that way, or too compacted or jammed up, or not, or an air bubble. This is also pretty common right here. So when planting your plants, especially when planting bare root plants, you want to make sure and cone up the middle, the dirt, and spread the roots over the cone of dirt to kind of, you want to have contact with the dirt and the roots, and you don't want any air bubbles. So you don't want too much contact. You don't want to compact the roots and squish them and bend them, but you want there to be good contact. And planting too shallow is common, and planting too deep and mounded. I see this one a lot. Plants get mounded like this, especially in restoration sites when it's tough digging, when the dirt is hard. So my suggestion is to just slow down, make sure you have your hole dug completely to the depth that is right, so that it doesn't get mounded, and because they will most likely die, the plants. So this is just a really great diagram of some of the different common mistakes that you see. So you can plant during the fall and winter is when we suggest planting. Fall is a really good time to plant. It's one of the better times to plant because the soil is not totally frozen, but it's still warm enough. So, you know, we've got February and March here, we've got the little arrows. Those are good times to plant in the springtime, or even more like January and February, now that I think about it, because when you go to plant plants in the springtime, you want to get them in the ground before their roots start growing. That's just the big key. You can get them in the ground and watered in before the roots start growing. And that's why we like to plant in the fall, because all the plants are going dormant, or they are dormant. Like throughout the winter here, you know, it's a little bit more mild. We don't always have frozen ground. We can plant throughout the winter here in the Northwest. So that's just the big planting time. And, you know, planting too late in the spring, you know, just, it doesn't work as well. It can work, and planting in the summer is probably the worst time to plant. And these are planting plants with roots. So seeds and stuff are different. So I'm going to go over some of the different kinds of plants that are out there when you purchase them. I'm going to talk about bare root and plug stock. So there's two different, there's advantages and disadvantages to both. The advantages to both of these is that they are usually a little bit more inexpensive than buying like plants in the gallon pot. And they're lightweight, they're easy to plant, easy to package, and easy to carry. And usually, if they're not in a big 1 gallon pot, you don't have to dig the hole as big. And the roots are, you know, they're not root bound. Sometimes when you get 1 gallon or 5 gallon pots, you know, from a nursery, they can be pretty root bound. These plugs and bare root plants, they establish very quickly. But there's also some disadvantages. There's limited species and there's seasonal availability. Bare root plants can only be dug out of the ground in the wintertime and when they're in deep, deep dormancy. The thing with bare root plants is that you want to really take care of their roots because they don't have the soil, but they are extremely cost effective. So if you purchase bare root plants, which are the plants that are available at our plant sale, and we have found that to be the best, most cost-effective way to get as many native plants out to people as possible, you want to plant them in their permanent home immediately if you can. That is like the number one choice when you get the bare root plants. So say you've made this big order for plants and you have 100 plants coming. You want to get a work party together so that you can get them into their permanent home right away within a couple of days of receiving them, or at least within a week. So first choice is put them right into their permanent home where they're going to go. Second choice is that you can have pots and soil available, and you can put them in pots and pot them up. If you want to wait till springtime, early spring, or even the next fall. The problem with keeping them in pots is that they still need routine maintenance and even more maintenance, a little bit more watering, because they don't have as much soil to rely on. So often, like I'm even guilty, I still have plants in pots from the Conservation District plant sale from 5 years ago, or maybe 6 years ago, and they're still in pots. So that's just the thing with pots. I think, any gardener, we just get really excited about our plants and we get way too many. And so I don't know if they're going to live. I should really get them in the ground this year. And I say that every year. So you can often forget about them, but the big thing, keeping plants in pots for any long period of time, which is over 2 months, is the watering. We just forget to water, and they just need more water in the summer. So you can also heel in plants, and I'll have a slide a little bit later about that, what that means, what that looks like. And so when you first get your bare root plants, you can store them though. You can store them for a week or less in a dark, cool place that's not too cold, so it won't freeze, but it's not too hot, like it's not heated. Like a garage is a really great place. And you just want to kind of continue to keep them in dormancy until you're ready to plant. When you store them, you want to make sure and keep the roots moist. So that's the thing with all bare root plants. The vulnerable part about a bare root plant is the roots. You want to keep them moist. So you receive bare root plants right before you plant them. You want to soak them for a good, couple hours, 6 hours. You can even soak them overnight, which is really great because they've traveled and they're probably dried out. So, and you can pack them in like moist shredded paper or moist newspaper. Also, if you're going to store them for over a week, but you want to check on them to make sure that they don't mold. So the best plan of action though is to be ready to plant them right when you get them in their permanent home. So yeah, you need to, when getting plants, prepare ahead of time. If you're not going to plant them, get your pots so you can put them in pots and the soil. Nurseries will give away pots generally. They usually have an excess of pots and they'll give them away for free. You want to have soil to plant them. You always want to mix some of the native soil with, like, if you get topsoil or potting soil, that kind of thing. If you can mix as much native soil as possible, that is the best, because that will really help them to start acclimating to where they're going to go. And just remember that potting up plants is temporary, and don't let them stay in the pots for like 5 years like I do. Yeah, it's just really temporary. You got to really be motivated to plant them the next spring or fall. You want to prepare a site to store them. You want to keep them in an area that is protected from the wind and from the sun, a place where the hose can reach so that they can get watered, and put them where you can see them so you don't forget about them. And yeah. And definitely always soak them in water before you plant them. And so this is what healing in looks like. So healing in is also a temporary place for the plants to live until you get all your holes dug out in the pasture or wherever you're going to plant them. It's a place where you have like a pile, a mulch pile, a sawdust pile, or a dirt pile already. You dig trenches like this, like shown in the picture, and you can put the plants in crowded and just a temporary holding place, and then cover them completely with soil. And you want to notice how it's like they're totally covered. If the roots are sticking out, they will dry out and will possibly die. They also need to be watered. So this is like even a more temporary place than a pot. They need to be watered also and still cared for. So you would just want to kind of have a plan before you receive your plants. And soaking. This is what it looks like to soak your plants. You can soak, you receive bare root plants with no soil, you can soak them like this for a couple hours or even overnight. You know, even if you use compost tea to soak them, if you make your own compost tea out of, you know, rabbit manure or whatever you have, or comfrey or whatever there is out there, that would be great. Yeah, this just really, because they've just been really dormant, and just really helps them to get a start on things. You want to pre-dig your holes if you can, like especially if it's hard soil. You want to dig wider than deeper. You know, you can spread the roots out rather than going straight down. So yeah, about twice the diameter of the roots. And like I said earlier, when you go to plant them, cone the soil up in the middle of the hole and put the roots, lay the roots on the outside of that cone, and then fill in with the dirt. And don't be afraid to prune some long roots. Sometimes you'll get a plant and there'll just be a really super long root or several roots. You can cut them off to where the level where most of the roots are. Yeah. So here's a picture of bare root planting. So you've got your hole dug, you've soaked your plants, and you want to use as little amendments as possible. You really want to use the native soil or mix it with compost and topsoil. But definitely, you know, use that native soil. When you put the plants in there, you want to backfill to the proper depth, and make sure and really tamp down the dirt around it when you put the dirt around, and get it all filled in to make sure you don't have any of those air pockets. You can even plant the plants in just a slight depression, as long as the roots are completely covered. That depression will really hold the water, and it will form a little water basin. So you want to water several times. So you've just planted your plant, you want to water it, let the water soak through. Then you want to water it again and let the water soak through. The point is that you want the water to soak through to all of the roots, to the ends of the roots. And it takes several times. And sometimes it takes a while for the water to soak through, drain through the soil. And then mulch. Mulch. You want to put, it doesn't matter what it is. It's leaves or grass clippings or even little sticks around. The mulching will hold in the water. You know, mulching is just like magic for planting plants. Everybody should mulch. We should all be mulching a lot everywhere. It conserves water. It helps to build up soil, the mycorrhizae fungi in the soil, and it just helps everything with the plant to get established. So you can also install a plant protector. And I'll show you what those look like. So these are plant protectors, and this is what one of our restoration sites out in Squim. It's at the River's Edge Levee Setback project that we are in partnership with Jamestown Clallam Tribe. And we have planted, here we planted 7,500 plants. And we did put protectors on them. There's lots of reasons to use protectors and lots of reasons to not use them. But protectors, they provide protection from the mice that are in the field. So if you're in a field, it's really good to put a protector on because the mice will chew around the bark. It also protects them from wind. If you have a real open area like this where there's no canopy, that's a really great way to protect them. And since this is a field, the grasses get pretty high. They get, over waist high, four feet high. This is mowed in between the rows. And the protectors really help if you're going to be mowing or weed eating around your newly planted plants so that you don't hit them, so that you can actually see them. And that's one of the main reasons that I have found a very functional reason to use protectors. And the protectors also, like when you're in a field like this, grasses can be pretty aggressive. The grasses will take over the plant, and it really just helps to just keep those grasses away. Grasses by nature are aggressive, just naturally. They like to just fill in space. And so when trying to get like this many started, protectors are a good thing. So there's other ways besides purchasing plants and growing seed to increase your forests and plant materials, and that is called live staking. Plants can be propagated by live staking, which is just cutting the plants and inserting them in the ground, 2 to 3 nodes, which the nodes are the little ridges that stick out on the plant and where the leaves come out. If you put 2 to 3 nodes underground, that will work too for several different species. Now, this doesn't work for all species of plant. This is willow and cottonwood live staking on the Elwha River. And willow is fantastic at live staking. It's great. Cottonwood is very similar to willow, and they root very quickly. And it's just a great way. Any plants that vegetatively reproduce, which means that they just produce roots from being laying on the ground, will work great for live staking. When you are cutting your stakes, you want to do it in the springtime. You want that new wood that's grown off of the plant, but you want to do it before the plants leaf out. So you got 2 weeks to cut your stakes and to plant them. And not only willow does well, but red osier dogwood does well. Elderberry can live stake. Snowberry can live stake. But willow and cottonwood, those are the best ones. So you don't ever have to buy willow and cottonwood because we have so much of it around. You can just go and cut it in the spring and live stake it. And it works really well. It is time consuming, it is labor consuming, but it does save money. So site prep is super important. There's a lot of different site prep techniques. You can do hand scalping, which is a lot of labor, but it works really well. And hand scalping is removing that layer of grass on the top, right around the plants. And what it does is it removes the competition, the
No
grass.
problem.
You can also prep the site by using a weed eater and scalping. and scalping the spot right there to remove the grass competition. And so this is all kind of removing competition. Planting in a field can be tricky because there is so much competition from the grass. And then also, of course, rototilling, and you can do sheet composting. I'll talk about that a little bit later. So, and here is the same restoration site. This is in Squim at the levee setback site. This is called River's Edge. And this is some of our site prep that we did. Now, we were so lucky to have just a straight field. Most places you can't get machinery into, or a lot of places you can't. And we actually augered the holes. So we did measure out the lines because we were planting 13 acres, and in total we are trying to plant 45 acres. So we have huge planting efforts going on this winter. We're trying to get in 12,000 trees this winter. Last winter it was 7,500, so we're almost doubling it. But so this is just some of our site prep. So augering the holes like this, oh gosh, if you can have machinery do it, just really saves time and your back. And and then we did measure out because we were doing the trees at 8 foot apart with 10 feet in between the rows. You can go closer than that for sure, but we wanted 10 feet in the rows so that we could get the machinery in between the rows and mow as well. So sheet composting is another technique that really helps reduce grass competition around the plants. So in this diagram, you would still want to scalp the grass away from the plant around your hole, scalp it, and then you put down cardboard. And the cardboard is just a really great way. It's just sheet composting. It biodegrades and it basically kills the grass underneath it. And then layer on 4 inches of mulch, 4 to 6 inches of mulch. And as you can see in this diagram, the mulch is kind of sloping away from the stem, because if the mulch is all bunched up against the stem, then it can cause it to rot. So just be careful when mulching newly planted trees. And mulch, I can't say enough about mulch. There's so many benefits to mulch, and probably the number one thing about mulch is that it conserves water. As water resources become, critical, it's just more and more important to mulch. Mulch holds the water, and it also helps moderate soil temperatures, and it suppresses weeds. It's just fantastic as a weed suppressant. A little bit of work will help save a ton of work in the long run. It reduces runoff. It actually holds the water right there where you need it, and it doesn't run off. And as it biodegrades, it creates great soil biology. And probably the most important thing about our soil is creating this mycorrhizal fungi. It's just that as it breaks down, there's fungi gets in there to help break down. And the fungi is super important. The mycorrhizal fungi is super important to transport nutrients and water to the roots of the plants. So when you first plant trees or shrubs or whatever you're planting, you do want to irrigate them. It says 1 to 3 years, at least 1 to 2 years. So you want to water them pretty regularly the first year to get them established. And then the next year, maybe water them during the hot months, those really hot months. We've had some pretty intense hot snaps. And so you definitely want to be watering during that time. When you water, you want to water enough. You want to water deep, but you don't need to water all the time, just water deep when you do water. So to get them established. So we've really found that in our restoration sites, some of them are so big and that they can't, you don't water, we can't water them. And they're so far out, or yeah, it just doesn't work for watering. And if they survive the first year, there's a 90% chance that they will survive the second year. But when you can't water, you do have more mortality, 20-30%, like some of those pictures you saw at River's Edge. There is going to be mortality if you can't water. And so I just wanted to talk about some of the problems that we have. We have invasive weeds. Invasive weeds are a pretty huge problem. So here's one of the main invasive weeds that people deal with all the time. The blackberries, the evergreen blackberry, which is in the top left, and the Himalayan blackberry, which is in the bottom left. The evergreen blackberry has more spikes, and it's just spikier in general. And the Himalayan blackberry has more rounded leaves. It is in the rose family. It has the picture of the flower has those protruding stamens, which is typical of rose, and it produces an amazing berry. We love it. And so I feel like it is our duty as people, as citizens, to eat at least 2 to 3 invasive berry pies a year. So I think it's just kind of like this seed reduction campaign that we should all just get on, is definitely eat 2 to 3 invasive berry pies a year. Even you can have an a la mode too. So eat your invasives before they eat you. That's what I like to say. But once blackberry, they get these large canes, they are so hard to control, and they can really take over. Weed eating them down, like is shown in the picture, is a good first step. You weed eat them down, and then if you could spray a little bit of herbicide right on the crown, that's really great. We try to go as clean as we can and not use herbicide. There are certain things when it comes to invasives that do need herbicide, or you're just going to spend year after year in intense labor trying to control these things. The thing about weeds is that once you start controlling them, if you just stay at it, you will find that year after year you take less and less time, but they are kind of a constant. You need to keep checking. And another invasive weed that is very dominant around here is reed canary grass, which is Phalaris arundinaceae. Reed canary grass it's super aggressive perennial grass. It grows strong rhizomes underground, and it reproduces vegetatively, as you can see on the right here, that picture. So like this was a treated with chemical patch of reed canary grass, but yet the underground growth is so strong that it started growing rhizomes out very quickly, and is just continuing to grow. It can be really hard to plant in this, in a field of reed canary grass. Super aggressive. It's tall. I mean, I have seen it 10 feet tall. I've walked in reed canary grass that's 10 feet tall. The thing about reed canary grass is that it can be shaded out. That's why you find it at places where there is no canopy, such as estuaries, pastures, riverbanks, areas where the canopy is naturally gone. It can be shaded out. It does take time. This is one that if you have it and you want to get rid of it, you probably need to treat it with chemicals. Because it's just so aggressive. So, and it doesn't even, once it's over about 5 inches, 6 inches tall, nothing grazes on it. No cows graze on it. The elk and the deer don't graze on it. And it's just not good. And here are 2 more favorite invasive weeds. we have herb Robert, which is otherwise known as Stinky Bob, Geranium robertanum, and Canada thistle, Cirsium arvens. Both of these are super aggressive. The herb Robert is shade loving. So you find it in shaded areas under forest canopies and in little seepages, and it loves water as well. It's a little geranium. It is allelopathic, and allelopathic means that it emits chemicals that does not let any other plants grow. So you will find them in big masses. And this one, you should pull, and pull again. And never compost invasive weeds, like never put them in the compost, because so many of them are invasive because they vegetatively reproduce as well as by seed, and you will just grow another patch. And sometimes the seed can bank in the compost for way too long, like 20, 30, 60 years, even for some species can seed bank. And Canada thistle, just want to talk about that one. That one's sun loving. It usually does not grow in the shade, so it like takes over pastures. It is has a very strong underground rhizomatic growth also. So I suggest using an herbicide on that one, because when you use herbicides that are targeted for invasive plants, the herbicide is drawn down into the root system and it kills them at the root. So you can mow this, but it's just not going to help. It's not going to do anything. It could actually spread it. You'll keep it down, which is nice. But you'll just spread it all around, and it will bloom under the blade of the mower level. So it'll just grow right along the ground and bloom right there. So, it's just tricky. If you really want to get rid of them 100%, you have to just make a plan. You just got to have an invasive weed pest management plan is what they're called.
Hey, Kim, you have a question in the chat.
Okay, awesome. Great. What does it say? Oh, okay. What does vegetatively reproduce mean? Okay, great. So there's different ways that plants can reproduce. They can reproduce by seed, and they spread seed around through the birds or however the wind. And they can also vegetatively reproduce, which means that just a broken piece of them, like this knotweed, what's on our screen right now, can, wherever it goes, wherever it sets down, it starts growing roots. So that means it just a piece of vegetation can grow a whole nother plant. And so it's not just about getting rid of the seeds, it's about getting rid of the whole plant and killing the whole thing. So knotweed here, there's several different kinds of knotweed. Polygamum species, there's like, I think 5 or 6 different species in Clallam County. Or Falloppia japonica, I believe is its new Latin name, because Latin names have to change. That's just what's required of them. The nomenclature of Latin. This one is just super intense. It grows really tight in our rivers. In our river banks. And it loves water, but it can also grow really intense under canopy. This one is mandatory control in Clallam County because it is so destructive. It just forms thickets like this, and it doesn't let any other plant grow. It's allelopathic, so nothing else grows, and it highly vegetatively reproduce. So any little plant part will just create a whole new another patch. It grows so fast in its height of growth. It can grow an inch a day. People say you can stare at it and watch it grow, which is probably true. And just really a problem. You know, in Clallam County, we've done a good job controlling this. But, you know, even if you go in Seattle around, you know, Lake Washington and just, I mean, I see it everywhere. I see invasive weeds everywhere because that's what I see. So it's, yeah, this one, don't start at a compost pile. It's also, it resembles bamboo. It looks like bamboo, the stalk does. So gotta watch out for this one. So we should all become botanists and learn how to identify our plants. Okay, that screen is stuck here. There we go. Moving forward. And then we have a lot of invasive plants. So I'm just talking about the real top invasive plants. These ones are horticulture escapees. So we have English ivy, Hedrahelix. I'm sure everybody's very familiar with that one. It produces a berry that feeds the invasive bird, the European starling, which you know, takes over the habitat of the native robin. So it just is like these invasive plants are not meant for this fauna here. They feed our invasive animals. And so it's, you know, I see it, the English ivy, you see it in the woods all the time, just rambling over everything. It takes over trees, it can kill trees, it can climb up trees. And it's just one that we just need to get rid of. You need to not have it in your landscape. Vinca, there's several different Vinca species. This one is invasive. We see it out in the woods where there's been an old homestead or something like that. Now it's not super aggressive, but if you're going to grow Vinca, just don't ever put clippings in the compost pile. You want to throw them away. Don't ever put things in the compost pile. If you need to get rid of them, you put them in a black plastic bag and you tie them up and you put them in the garbage, which is what the noxious weed board does for the ones that can't be composted. And they go to our garbage, and our garbage in Clallam County is capped. So there's no problem of them reproducing. And English holly, the Ilex aquifolium, is super invasive. Birds love it. Once again, it feeds the European starling bird, and the birds spread it everywhere. And you find it out in the wild everywhere. It can be a big problem. And a few more horticulture escapees that I need to mention are the butterfly bush, Buddleia davidii. This one is like horrible. The Dungeness River has a horrible problem of butterfly bush, and it highly vegetatively reproduces. So it'll, you know, little piece drops on the ground, it starts a whole nother plant. And it is also planted, people do buy it. It is sold at nurseries, even though it is on the quarantine list. There is a variety out there because people love it so much for the purple flower. There's a variety, a sterile variety out there, but it's like, then it doesn't help the pollinators at all. And I feel like it's so misleading to grow this one as a sterile plant. It's just one that we need to avoid because it's such a problem. If anybody has hiked along the Dungeness River, you have seen it. And then yellow archangel. This one is also on the quarantine list for Washington State. It's highly invasive. It's a ground cover, shade loving ground cover. And boy, once you have this on your property, you're not going to get rid of it, but you should try. If you see it hiking through the woods, I see it all the time, just rambling down the cliffs from houses, and it just carpets everything. It's just super destructive to the under the canopy. And people love it though, because it's a shade loving ground cover that's semi pretty, even though I've trained myself to not think it's pretty, but I guess it's semi pretty. So you got to learn to hate your native plants. Love to hate them, something like that. So chemicals and hand pulling are not the only way to control invasive plants. There are biocontrols out there. Scott's broom has several biocontrols. This is a picture of a weevil. It's a seed-eating weevil. There's also a seed-eating beetle, but this one is the weevil. And I've released biocontrols on large patches of Scotch broom. And this weevil is naturally on the plant. If you look really close and you really get into like looking at all the insects on there, it's naturally there, but it eats the seed. So it takes a long time for this one. This one is like a long-term biocontrol. And but it is a way to naturally reduce it over time. And honestly, I know it takes so long. I'm not sure what the success rate is. So that is something I should check up on, see how those controls are doing. And purple loosestrife. Purple loosestrife is this one right here, this purple plant on the left. And there's also a weevil that will eat the flower of the purple loosestrife. And they've actually had great success with this weevil for the loosestrife, and it eats the flower, so it can't reproduce as a seed. And yeah, eventually kills the plant. Purple loosestrife grows generally in water or on the edges of water. And it's one that it can clog up ponds and lakes. And it's one of those that you really want to watch because it's super, super aggressive. So if you see a purple flower growing out in the middle of your pond, I can almost tell you right now, it's purple loosestrife. But we do have fireweed, which is our native plant that's good, that can grow on the edges. It looks like it. So just make sure that we want to keep fireweed. We like fireweed, but we do not like purple loosestrife. So just do a little botanizing there. So weed maintenance, you've got hand pulling. That's what kids are for, right? And you've got the chemical control, which is spraying or spot spraying. And you just want to make sure that whoever is applying that is licensed, or that you're following the label. If it's a home chemical, you always want to follow the label. You always want to have your PPE, personal protective equipment. And then sheet mulching down here on the left is a really great way to kill weeds or kill grass. I sheet mulch my vegetable garden. I put mulch in, like chips, every single springtime. And then after summer, in the winter, I put cardboard like this. And the only thing you need to be aware of with this sheet mulching, cardboard or newspaper, is that it can fly away in the wind. So you want to put like some dirt on top of it or some rocks so it can't fly away. And I always get the question about vinegar. Does vinegar work? Well, let's just examine vinegar for a minute. Weed control grade vinegar is 20% acetic acid. That is dangerous. I mean, you need to wear eye protection and hand protection. It's pretty much like a chemical. It works by burning the plant. So it's just like a contact, what you would say is a contact herbicide or, vinegar, contact kill. And it doesn't travel systemically in the plant. Like herbicides are made to soak into the plant and travel down to the root system to kill it. Whereas vinegar will just kill the tops. It rarely kills perennials because it only kills the tops. It doesn't often go to the roots, but it's good for small spaces. And I know people have had success with it using like the 5% household vinegar. But so it works probably on a small scale. I don't know. if you've had some luck with it, you guys tell me, is it working for you? And so, yeah, just want to pause right here for some questions if we have any. And feel free to unmute yourself and speak up, or you can put it in the chat. And I'm just, okay, yeah. So I'm checking out the chat. And I think yeah.
This is Kayla.
Hi.
Are you going to talk about poison hemlock?
I'm not, but I should. Poison hemlock. I don't have a slide of that. That's a good one. I'm going to write that down to put it in there. Poison hemlock is extremely poisonous. Kayla, have you dealt with poison hemlock before?
Yes. Well, my best friend was the one that last week she accidentally ate some. I don't know if you heard about that, but she was her neighbors have a garden and they snowbird, so they had left for the winter, and they said you can pick whatever you want. So she was going through the garden and picking things, and they had a bunch of parsley, and she was picking the parsley and putting it in the bag, and she was nibbling as she went, and she picked a leaf of what she thought was parsley and put it in her mouth, and it tasted horrible, so she spit it out.
Yeah.
So she used the Picture This app.
Yeah.
And took pictures of it, and it said poison hemlock, and she's like, no way. So she ended up taking like 6 pictures from different angles, and it just kept saying poison hemlock. So she called a neighbor who's a botanist, and he came over and said, yeah, that's poison hemlock. So she washed her mouth out for about 10 minutes with water, and she hadn't actually swallowed any of it, but she knows what poison hemlock is, so she was absolutely terrified, because if animals eat a small amount, they're
It kills animals.
Oh yeah, within a couple hours, and there's nothing you can do, and it's extremely dangerous for people. I mean, it causes it basically kills by respiratory depression, but it can cause a lot of other really dangerous effects too.
Yeah.
But she was absolutely terrified, and understandably. I mean, she thought she was going to die in 2 hours.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and there's
Wow.
a lot of it in Jefferson County, and from what I understand, it's been spreading west across Clallam County, and it's as far as like Deer Park Road and Mount Pleasant. But and I commend the toxic weed guys, because I see them out there all the time trying to take care of it. But it's extremely dangerous.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, it's just, it just shows you that you got to be so careful what you're eating. I love to eat my wild native plants, but this one in particular looks like parsley. It can grow tall, and its stems are blotched purple, but it has that real lacy parsley looking leaf. It grows, it looks like the native plant called water parsley, and there's water hemlock. I mean, it's just you want to be so careful, because you can die. It's respiratory paralysis is how it works. It kills cattle, because cattle will eat it, especially if the pasture is not managed well and they're hungry. They will eat it. Horses will eat it. I mean, you want to get rid of it. I need to put that in the slideshow, a picture of it. Everybody should look it up just so you know what it is. I mean, it's super fun to eat wild plants, but you have to know what you're eating. You have to be a botanist. You have to study them, or be with someone who knows what they're talking about. Removing poison hemlock can be super dangerous. You have to wear full on gloves, and people can get headaches and can get really impacted by the pollen, if there's any pollen, and you don't want the juices to get onto your hand. It can cause chemical burns. I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's incredible. I've never heard of anyone eating it, but if you're planting a garden, you just want to make sure you know everything around there. That's kind of scary to hear, but I'm glad she's all right.
Yeah, she was telling her neighbor, you know, what to do with her animals and everything. She literally thought she was going to die. And she got on the phone with the poison control center,
Good.
and they asked her what, you know, what symptoms she was having. And
Well, do you know
so
what they
luckily-
told her to do if you accidentally eat a poisonous plant like that?
Well,
I can't remember what.
the thing is that the effects that it causes are, you know, are really dangerous, you know, the respiratory depression and stuff. So and I'm a pharmacist, but I would recommend, you know, getting to the hospital as soon as you can, because so that the hospital hopefully can support you, you know, with
Yeah.
a ventilator or whatever they need to do, because it can make your heart race and cause seizures and all kinds of stuff. So you know, but if it can support you through that until your body can process it out of your system, you know, that's probably your best chance of survival.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
But she thought she was going to be dead in 2 hours. She's like, I'm not going to the hospital. There's no point. I mean, it was
Wow. Oh
really
my
horrible.
gosh. Yeah. That's a scare. Well, thanks for sharing.
Sure.
So yeah, I think I'm looking at the chat here, and I think I covered, do not put the weeds in the compost, put them tied in a plastic bag and in the dump. How do we get rid of widespread Canada thistle without disturbing the soil? Would it be best just to spray with a chemical, or would it be better to excavate the worst areas? And how long would it take the soil to recover? Okay, so I say, I mean, you know, it depends on you, what you feel about chemicals. Chemical treatment, I think, is going to be your best bet, because the chemicals that are out there, they have half-lives, and the half-life is the life that the active ingredient is active. And there's chemicals out there that are like a 40 to 50 day half-life that can be used on Canada thistle. And so that's pretty quick. So the soil would only, you'd have to leave it fallow, you know, leave it for like 40 to 50 days. And that's pretty quick. And once you've gotten rid of it, you know, you just have to do a little bit of maintenance. Excavating can also almost be more invasive. I mean, it's invasive to the native soils. It, you know, messes up the topsoil, and it does expose all the weed seeds also. So you got to pick and choose what you want. What herbicide do you recommend for native blackberry? I have a large patch where herb Robert has also invaded. Hard to pick amongst the thorns. Yeah, there is an herbicide called Crossbow, and you can get it at Coastal. And it doesn't kill grasses, but it kills other broadleaf plants. And you just want to make sure and follow the label and the mixing. And it's yeah, it's really good for woodies, you know, like not those real tender perennials, but the woodies, like the big canes that the blackberries have. So yeah, it is. Yeah, those thorns are hard. Okay, I don't see any more questions, so I'm just going to continue on. We're going to talk about some of the pests, the common pests that we see. Tent caterpillars. Tent caterpillars, they go in cycles around here. Some people say 3 years, some people say 5 years cycles. I say they show up when they show up. You can they generally will not kill the tree. They will defoliate them and the tree will look horrible. But they generally, because they just like defoliate, they love to eat the leaves. And this is what they look like. They're all gross. Hopefully everybody's seen them. Hopefully, maybe you haven't. You can do manual control of these. At the end of summer or in the fall, you can hunt for the egg cases. These are these silvery little masses that are around the sticks like this. This is an egg case on the left that has hatched. So that one's all done. But if you find these silvery egg cases, you can prune them off and burn them. You can also squish them. That was my job as a kid in our apple orchard, was to go around and squish all these. And I loved it. For some reason, I did it without gloves. The things you do as kids. And if you see these webbed nests early in the spring, you can clip them out and burn them, or, you know, close them tight in a garbage bag. There is a natural control. It's a naturally occurring bacteria called Bacillus thuringiensis, and you can spray that on the leaves and they won't eat it. But in general, they're more of just a nuisance. They have killed trees, especially if the trees are younger, but in general, they'll just make it look horrible and defoliate it. But the gypsy moth is something we all want to be careful of. We all want to know what it is and what it looks like. So here's the moths on the top left. I mean, really hard to spot, super camouflaged there. I mean, you have a male and a female. Female is white and the male is dark. And this is what the caterpillar looks like. And the identifying marks on the caterpillar are these 3 pairs of blue dots and then several pairs of red dots. So if you see that, you want to destroy that and make sure it's destroyed. There's such a problem with gypsy moth, especially on the East Coast, where it will just defoliate forests. And so there is a trapping program going on with the Department of Agriculture. If you see little boxes like this, these fluorescent orange, and sometimes they're green boxes, inside of that is a pheromone that is attracting the moth, and then it's real sticky in there and it'll capture it. And so there have been gypsy moths found, you know, from time to time all over the Olympic Peninsula. But, you know, we don't have, because we have such a great program on capturing these moths, we don't have too much of a problem, but we really want to hold it back because it can destroy whole forests. They're just voracious eaters. And I want to talk a little bit about pasture weeds. So hairy cat's ear on the top right looks a lot like dandelion, which is Taraxacum officinale. So dandelion is not really a weed. It is great early pollinator food for the bees, and it is it's not as aggressive as hairy cat's ear. People confuse these two all the time. They are different. Hairy cat's ear has more lobed leaves and they are fuzzy, whereas dandelion has more spiky leaves and they are clean. There's no fur on them. This on the bottom is what hairy cat's ear looks like. Now I know they can be super prolific, especially in pastures, and the hairy cat's ear is not good for horse and livestock. Also, it can make them sick, whereas dandelion doesn't. So you kind of decide what you want to do with these weeds, if you want to control them or not. But I really wanted to point out the difference between hairy cat's ear and dandelion, because people, you know, confuse them. And so going to pests, the Asian giant hornet. The Asian giant hornet is real. It is 2 inches long with a 3-inch wingspan, and it's a voracious predatory hornet. Most hornets are predatory. and kill other flying insects. But this one is so large that it will just kill. It just goes on rampages, and it can kill hives of bees, decapitate them all. And so I don't think there were any sightings last year in Washington of Asian hornet nests. Maybe you guys know better, but I know in 2021 there are 4 nests in Whatcom County, 4 nests found up in British Columbia. If you see Asian giant hornet, like, they can do some damage on our insects, so we want to stop them. We need to find them. You can report any sightings to the Washington State Department of Agriculture website at this address right here, agr.wa.gov/hornets. So something we need to watch out for. Spruce weevil. The spruce weevil is an insect that we have problems with, especially our timber industries are really hurting around here. It attacks the spruce from the top down, and it makes the tree no good for timber. It's still an okay tree for the forest and for restoration sites, or for you know, your property. But this is what the spruce weevil does, and it's just really devastating our timberlands, and does this tip dieback, and then you can tell that it's got a weevil when it's at this stage. And this is what the larvae look like. There's not a lot you can do. They've tried to spray for it, but yeah, I think that they're experimenting. Our timber silviculturists are experimenting with different types of trees now to grow instead of the spruce. But spruce is an amazing tree. Love that tree. Pine bark beetles. This is, you know, every once in a while we get calls about pine bark beetles, and they are there. Once you see an infestation, it is recommended that you get rid of the tree. This is what you will see. The beetle will burrow little holes in, and the holes will pitch out. And it's usually on the bottom parts of the tree. The Master Gardener's Native Plant Clinic, which is an online, you can have things diagnosed. You can have diseases and insects diagnosed. You can, you know, send them pictures. They'll want pictures. They'll want as much information as possible. You'll probably never see the beetle, but you'll see the evidence of the beetle. And there's really not much you can do. They actually say, get rid of the tree, burn it, get rid of it. So there are homemade insect pest remedies. If you have outbreaks and you're seeing that your leaves are being chewed up, and or you've got aphids, you know, you can make there's a ton of different recipes for little handheld spray recipes with garlic, onion, cayenne, and soap. That's just kind of like your basic, you know, they all kind of have those ingredients in them. Salt and water mixture in a spray bottle. These are so easy to look up. These little handheld insect things, you know, remedies and recipes are just so temporary. You know, they wash off with the rain, and they, you know, don't, you know, nothing long term, but it's just your little, if you're out there in your food garden, that's a good way. Now, neem oil, I left this in here. This is a neem tree. It is an oil that has been used for a lot of problems, a lot of insect and pest problems. It is slightly toxic to fish and other aquatics, and it only harms insects when they eat the plant. The thing about neem oil is that it harms good insects and bad insects. So you need to really, you know, think about how you want to use it if you choose to use neem oil. But it is a naturally occurring tree, the neem tree. And ants are, you know, you can use your essential oils with ants. They're so easy to control. You just spray mint oil a line of mint oil and the ants will not pass. Like if you see ants, like do a test, you just spray some oil, mix some essential oil, mint with water, spray it. They won't pass. And you can also do a mixture of borax and sugar water, put it on the floor. The ants will come and get it and they'll take it back to the nest and will kill the nest if you're having ant problems. So there's just a ton of little home remedies, and we try to just use them when we can. Deer are a problem. Deer eat everything. If you're trying to grow a food garden, then deer are hard. There's not a lot you can do with deer. I mean, there are things. Get this deer off spray. They've made some really good ones out there that are completely non-toxic, that stay on through a couple rains, but just know you'll have to reapply them. They work really well. They do not like the smell. Irish Spring chopped up and put in little bags, and the deers do not like the smell of this. So it's a really fragrant soap that I've used in the garden and seems to work. But then again, if the deer are super hungry, I don't think not much is going to stop them. And you can fence out your garden, fence like this, but then don't forget to shut the gate, because if the gate is open, the one time you leave the gate open, the deer will find it and they will eat your whole garden. And this is from experience. So you have to put a pretty tall fence. I read that it's 13 to 15 feet to keep deer out. To me, that sounds really high, but I guess that's what's the going rate on my Google search. But I think an 8 to 9 foot might work. Or, you know, have a dog, let your dog out. And before we go, I wanted to mention this project here called City Shade Project. It's by Paul Forrest. Paul Forrest is just like, he's just advocating to bring more canopy into our urban areas. There's just so many benefits to having more trees, whether they're native or not, in the urban setting. Now, there are trees that the city allow you to plant in like if you have a median or a little strip here, sidewalk strip, they have to be city approved trees. There are only 3 native species accepted on this list. Gary oak, Douglas maple, and serviceberry are the 3 that are accepted. And the rest are non-native trees. But this is where I'm like, you know, we need more urban canopy. It helps with everything. It helps with pollution and stormwater, bringing temperatures down. So Paul Forrest has this project where he's trying to make the permit process free. Currently, if you want to plant a tree on your strip, then you have to pay a fee. He wants it to be free. He wants there to be free trees from the city. So he's growing out trees in this greenhouse here for this City Shade project. And all trees have to be a single trunk and deciduous, and no bulging roots that will crack the sidewalks or break curbs, things like that. And that's the reason why these trees are on the city approved tree list. So if you know anybody that works for the city or city council, just advocate for the City Shade project, because we really need to increase our urban canopy. So had to do a plug for the City Shade. So that really concludes my presentation today. Hatninzan, thank you. Thank you for listening. Are there any questions or comments? So at our plant walk yesterday, we had a suggestion that maybe people could put their emails in the chat if you have plants that you want to share or plants that you want to purchase together. Like at our plant sale, we sell bundles of 25 for conifers. And if you're like, I don't need 25 trees, maybe someone wants to go in and we'll share a bundle. So we don't give out emails because we want to protect people's information. But if you feel like you want to put your email in the chat, we will capture it and send it out to everyone. If you feel like you want to try and find someone to, you know, share plants or even share starts with. Yeah, there was just talk about that at our plant walk yesterday. So. So, anybody else feel like you just can unmute and say whatever you need to say?
Okay, this is Carol Irving, and I was at the plant walk, and one of the things we talked about is there were also interests in things like sharing recipes for some of these natives. There's a lot of health, medicinal natives and things like that. So if you put your email address in, if you give an idea of what you're interested in too, like if you're interested in sharing plant bundles, or if you do plant starts, like last year I started basil in my new greenhouse and I never had luck before. So instead of what I needed, I had 47,000 times what I needed, and I was giving it to anybody who would take it. So, what your interests are, that would help too for the plant list.
Yeah, it would be really great to have like just kind of exchange of information, exchange of plants, seeds, recipes. There was someone who was doing medicinal recipes with her elderberry, blue elderberry.
That was me.
How interesting. Oh, was that you?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, if you're interested and in your email being shared amongst this group, then yeah, just type it in and we can do that.
Hey, Kim, it's Kayla.
Hi.
I emailed you pictures that my friend took of the poison hemlock that she accidentally ate. There were little baby plants, obviously, and she's got the poison hemlock right next to the parsley. And if I had looked at those and was supposed to guess which one was which, I would have guessed that the poison hemlock was the parsley.
Wow, really?
Yeah, they're that similar.
Wow. I'm trying to pull the pictures up. Oh, I see the pictures. Wow. Oh, wow. You're right. That's really confusing. I mean, that's really a problem. Oh, that's kind of
Yeah,
scary.
I was pretty afraid of that stuff before that happened, and that, yeah, it's very scary stuff.
Wow. That's incredible. Wow. I'm just, yeah. I mean, at least the thing is that most poisonous plants taste awful. So once you put them in your mouth, you should know, but a little bit can kill you or can really damage you. So it's kind of rough. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Kim.
Yeah.
You have a question from MW. If you scroll just a little bit up.
Oh. Let's see. Up. Do you recommend cutting, trimming natives to encourage growth, or just let them go? Yeah. So pruning your natives, is great, and you can encourage growth that way. It just depends on the look you want. Pruning them is a little bit more of a manicured look, which is great and fun. You can get really creative with that. But you most definitely, now not all of them, mostly the shrubbies would do really good being pruned, but yeah, you definitely can do that. So you've started growing tea plants. Is that Labrador tea? Because that's a nice native tea plant. I wonder what kind of tea, if you're still there.
This is Meg, and I found that lemon verbena tea is phenomenal, and I harvested my lavender blossoms, and they were all in jars, and I just made tea with a
Oh.
couple teaspoons in a French press. And then I didn't drink it. Oh, it's amazing. And then when it cooled down, I could use it as a spray
Hmm.
for linens and things.
Yep. Yeah, that's great.
Just the plain water and lavender. I didn't need to buy essential oils or anything. It was amazing.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can make insect repellents that way also.
Yeah, thank you for this course.
Thank you. And, so that's just kind of the end here. Feel free to email me with questions or pictures. And we do have our native plant sale opening up November 23rd, where we're selling bare root plants. Most of them are bare root at pretty amazing prices, I would say, so that people can get a jump on their native landscaping. So yeah. Well, thank you. We will capture anything in the chat that's there and get it out to people. I will follow up with an email. Thanks, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.